Hello everyone and welcome to the stream. I believe I have audio right away this time. I believe that I did it correctly and remembered it. So hopefully the audio is good here. Let's see. Cutting off the top of my head a little bit, but there we go. That's better. Alright, so hello everyone. We are live. Let me see well, I guess I'll do Trashman's intro first before we see who's in the chat because that just popped up right away. The Trashman says, live from the spooktacular state, it's the lady who smiles brighter than the jack-o'-lantern, is sweeter than a bag of treats, and has tails darker than the crypt keeper ever thought of having. So with that, here's Dolly. Thank you. I don't know if I smile brighter than a jack-o'-lantern, but I'll take it. I'll take it. All right, so we already have a bunch of people in the chat. There are 315 of you at the moment. Well, that's the number of playbacks. So let's see. We have Jesse Meek is in, Sabby is in, Squid Monkey, Cap and Mac, BS in California, Tada, Q, Michael J, Blue River Cat, John Morgan. Let's see, did I get Squid Monkey already? I did. Chaotic Scorpio, Blue River Cat, John Morgan, Michael Tomlinson, Michael Jones, BS in California, Perry Stark, Bob Messer Cola, Leonidas Alberia, MS, Glocks R for Kids. Man, the mods are in right away today. Stray Cat, Robert Graham, Jason J, Brad Steele, Carolina Infidel, Shadow Bear, Jonathan Stevie, Ken O, let's see, Matthew Malloy. Who else we got? We got Patio Furniture, Gone Fish and Eric, Matt, just Matt, John Swicegood, Matthew Baugh, Rick Tennant, Jason J, John B, BB37, Tony Matthew Dunn, Ken O, Harley Hillbilly, John Citizen, John Deal, Gary Shoemaker, sorry, Kirk Morrison, Ginger Monkey Bear, Douglas from Pennsylvania, One CNC Guy, Jack Pittinger, the Surmadog, Spiff the Magnificent, Lollipop Dragon, U.S. Ursine Supremacy, Philip Mullis, David Neal, Tim Dasinger, 556 Media, Rod L. Miller, Fine Ape, Tennessee Beowulf, Northwest Oregon Fishing, Ricky Hendricks, Glenn Venusdale, Redleg Wolf, who else? Frosty Leprechaun, Tristan Goodrich, I can't read today apparently, Nomad is 0036, and let's see, Rick Tennant I think we got, Gardner is in, hi Gardner, Michael Wolford, and I think I'm starting to overlap now. Alright, and Crazy Uncle Bob says, good evening. Well, good evening, Crazy Uncle Bob. We also have Dave Simmons, Thinking Impaired, Jonathan Stevie, A. Dubs, and Andrew Kang are all in the house. I see Tada is asking about Liberty Doggo. Liberty Doggo is not in the room right now. Liberty Doggo is outside at the moment, but as soon as he gets allowed inside, I'm sure that he will be at the door crying. So, did I just hear him actually? Not sure yet. I'm sure he'll be up here crying shortly, and then I'll feel bad and have to get up and let him in. And I still didn't make myself a BRB screen, so it'll just be awkward when that happens. Alright, folks, so, a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. I know that I had two, and now I only remember what one of them was. I don't remember what the second one was. Oh, yes, we'll get to that in a minute. So, first off, as a heads up, USCCA is changing their affiliate program platform and all of that, which means that after The 31st, my links for USCCA will no longer work, and memberships through me or my links will be on hold for, well, I mean, you'll still have your membership, but if you go and buy one, it doesn't kick back to the channel after the 31st for an undetermined period of time. I don't know what that's going to be. They're just having meetings about how that will all work yesterday and today. So if you were planning on getting a USCCA membership for the purpose of getting the membership but also helping out the channel, you're going to want to do that in the next 2 or so days, because after the 31st, that link will no longer work. So there will be no longer a uscca.com/libertydoll link that will be active, and I think I'm actually going to have to go through every single video and pull that down so that people don't use it. That is number one. Number two isn't really so much a housekeeping announcement, just an interesting little ditty that happened today. So I did post up a new video today. I know that some of you have seen it already. It was about Michael Myers being called homophobic for killing a gay couple in the most recent Halloween movie. I know that's not my typical content, but it was just so stupid that I had to say something about it. And when you are a partner on YouTube, you have to, when you upload and you do monetization, right, it makes you fill out this little survey of what no-no things are in your video so that YouTube can decide if you get to run ads or not, or get a share even of like YouTube Red revenue. So that's when people have like a premium membership and watch your videos, you get like, I don't know, a couple cents or something. So filling out this survey and then getting a YouTube review are what determines if your video is monetized or not. If it is then demonetized, then you basically get flagged in the algorithms, and if it happens enough, you get put on the no-no list. They even get threatened with your monetization being taken away. So, fun fact, I went to upload my video today, and YouTube recently announced that they were going to be changing their policies around talking about the pokey things, if you get my drift, and they're not allowing any pokey content on the platform, was this new announcement that they had put out. Apparently what that also means is they pass their little policy change and then go back in people's accounts and flag every video that previously talked about the hokey pokey. And then what happens is you get a bright red warning on your channel telling you that monetization and revenue are in danger because you've done a very bad job of filling out your little survey and you've talked about some very bad things. They went back and did this to all of my videos that mentioned, we're just going to call it the hokey pokey now because that's fun. All of my videos that even mentioned in passing the hokey pokey for the last 3 months. And they only did that to the ones in the last 3 months. And then there are separate policies about like how many of those things you can happen within a 90-day period. So long story short, I'm on the YouTube no-no watch list now because they changed their policy and retroactively went back and like flagged some of my videos. And the fun thing is some of them were done by like the automatic YouTube AI algorithm bullshit, but some of them were even put in by manual review. That means that someone sat there and, for example, watched my video about the bill in Congress to put people on the no-fly list for not having their hokey pokeys and decided that it was medical misinformation and flagged it. So someone at YouTube is an asshole and doesn't understand the semantics of what medical misinformation is. So, yes, as Leonidas Alberia says, totally not suppression of free speech. Not at all. So that's a fun thing that's happening. Jesse says, not sure how many more of these streams you will be doing before you take a bit of time off for Liberty Bun's arrival, so here is a birthday and Christmas gift for her and your special day. Thank you. Tristan says, wait, you weren't on YouTube's naughty list before? So I vacillate. Sometimes I'm on it and sometimes I'm not. And I see Emmanuel Goldstein says move to Odyssey. I'm already on Odyssey. I'm already on Library. I'm already on Gunstreamer. The two-way videos go up on Full30. I'm on BitChute. BitChute is actually my second largest platform next to YouTube. But at this point, with me closing down my practice and going on maternity leave, YouTube is my only source of income at this point, and so Odyssey is great in that it helps get things out to another audience, but they don't have tipping, or at least they don't have tipping yet, and they don't have monetization at this point. So, I mean, I can be on those other platforms as much as I want, and they certainly help with getting the information out, but they don't help in paying any of the bills. So there's definitely a what would even be the word? There's a trade-off there for sure. So and no, I'm not live streaming on Odyssey yet, because so Odyssey, I looked into it and they have streaming, but it's, I think it's only in beta, and a lot of the technical language, they have a bunch of requirements that kind of like confused me. And so from what I understand is to live stream on Odyssey, I'll have to buy something called Restream and then set it over to both YouTube and Odyssey, but then I have to do something with the bit rates because their bit rate only allows like 2500 or something like that, and I have to put that together with the bit rate that's allowed on YouTube. I don't know, it's some weird math technical thing that I didn't fully understand. And then the other part of that, unfortunately, is I don't know how much you guys like them. I like them. The little like things that pop up when there's like a super chat or a new member or something like that. It like pops up with a little notification. I won't get that anymore if I go through Restream. That won't pop up on the screen, and I won't be able to see everything. I won't be able to see like the chat right in OBS or any of that stuff, and I have to go through Restream Studio instead, which is not as streamlined. Whatever. I am on Rumble. Oh, you can live stream on Rumble now. I am on Rumble now, but Rumble, I have not uploaded on it in a very long time because it's very clunky and slow. Unfortunately. I did that in the past where I would upload to Rumble and it would just take so long. Full30 takes a long time too. I don't know why, but their upload speeds are very slow. And eventually I just forgot about it. But I'll try to be better about that. Oh yes, Tristan Goodrich, that's the other thing. He says, Odyssey's streaming can be a bit flaky based on my experience trying to watch the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. Yeah, that's the other thing. I've heard that it's the quality isn't necessarily there yet, and it can be really pixelated, and you get dropped frames and dropped audio and all of that stuff. So what I really should be doing is making myself a checklist that I go through every time I upload a video. But I'm gonna be real with you guys. Usually I'm like uploading and then rushing to finish like check off all the little boxes that the different platforms need, and I inevitably forget some because I'm on a time crunch at that point. My ADHD. Dave Rubin's Locals is now part of Rumble. I did not know that. That is good to know. All right, I'm gonna grab these super chats that just came in, and we're gonna jump in. Oh yes, and as Jesse said, I'm not entirely sure how many streams we will have left before baby's arrival as well. So tomorrow I'm 34 weeks, which technically means I have 6 left, possibly 8. If I get to 8, though, then I phase out of being allowed to work with the midwives. So usually they'll give you some gross concoction before then to try to like herbally, holistically induce you before that happens. So we'll say 6 to 7 weeks left. And as bright and bushy-tailed as I look, I've definitely reached the point where I am ready for bed every day by 6 p.m. So I'm not really sure how many of these we'll have left as well. I might change the day or the time for a little while and see if that helps. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but I'll keep you guys updated with that. And let's see. Destiny Troll says a little something for the baby fund. Thank you, thank you. And ooh, Ishevix says baby fund. Well, bebe fund. Thank you. Oh yeah, Tada also mentions Twitch. So Twitch has weird rules around political speech, from my knowledge. So if I was going to do a whole bunch of platforms, I would choose like D Live or something over Twitch. But again, any of those, if I go to any place beyond YouTube, then I don't get the chat anymore, and I don't get the little like thingies, the notifications that pop up, and I like those because the sound of it dinging if I'm on a rant reminds me I need to go back and check those, and that I need to hydrate. So, Q comes in with a tip. Says, I left a comment on the new video twice and they seem to have been auto-removed. I said I wasn't sure they were a gay couple. I was thinking it was a caretaker living with another guy who seemed a bit mentally challenged. I haven't seen it, and I know that you offered a way for me to watch the movie. So, I was not aware of that. I mean, that's a possibility, but I guess, I don't know, either way, Social Justice Twitter decided that it is in fact a gay couple, and that is a big problem, though some people said that Michael Myers isn't homophobic because he placed them, like a photo of them. I don't know, but there was a couple other people that had some issues with their comments disappearing on that video, and that was a thing. So, and it was weird because, you know, there was a couple people that posted a comment and they said it wasn't going through, and then it popped up like multiple times all at once. I don't know, YouTube does their own thing. I only have, I have like one filter that will filter out like if you call me a see you next not so much because that's like toxic, but because YouTube will ban me for that. So I have a couple of filters for things like that, but otherwise I don't filter anything out. But YouTube has its own weird stuff that it like puts into spam or like a hold for review folder, and I go through them occasionally. Sometimes I don't because people get really mean in there, but I'll even approve mean comments as long as they're ones that won't get me banned. But it means sitting and having to read through all of them to approve them. But YouTube puts some really weird stuff in there, like rainbow emojis. I don't know. That's one of the things that I've found in there. So I don't know. YouTube does its own thing with that. Um, let's see. Destiny Troll says, "Fine, OnlyFans. It is no rule against safe for work content there." I've had a few people joking that I should start an OnlyFans and just like read the Constitution or something. But I think Julie Borowski already did that. Earthsign Supremacy says, "Please add the links to your profiles on other platforms so we can follow you over there too. Never know when YouTube might ban you for any reason or no reason at all." So they are listed in the description of every single video. They're at the bottom. I think it's like support and then like partners, and then it's at the last one is other platforms, and you'll have them all listed there. I never know what order to put those things in. That's something that I might also change at one point or remind people of those other platforms, but they are listed in every single video, including the description of this one. Gardner says, "Hi, here's to you for the great Halloween/Chucky insight video. The woke have such bizarre priorities, and you got me smiling and shaking my fist at the same time." Yeah, it's bizarre. Glocksurfer Kid says, "Michael Myers isn't homophobic. He kills everyone." Yes, rated E for everyone. All right, so we're gonna get into some of these stories now. Okay, one more just came in. Irish Lover 7745 says, "There's always posing for the cover of Vogue, ironically, like Demi Moore. Did she do that? I mean, was it ironic? I suppose that's a thing. I suppose if Vogue asked me, I might do it for ironic shits and giggles, but I doubt that's ever going to happen." Oh yes, Tada says, "Liberty Doll Senior Baby Registry on Patreon. Worth a mention." I suppose there were some Patreon folks and Subscribestar folks that had asked for it, and so I posted it there and on the exclusive Discord as well. But I went through and bought a bunch of the stuff yesterday that wasn't on that hadn't been picked yet, because yeah, with 6 weeks left, it's getting down to the wire, and I had a random stranger, let's see, was that before or after the last stream? Anyways, there was a random stranger that approached me and swore up and down that baby is coming early, and it really freaked me out. And so I wanted to make sure that I had the crib and the dresser, but while I was at it, I was like, well, I get a 15% discount at Target for the registry completion, and then I get another 5% because I'm a Target member, so I get 20% off. So I just stuffed everything into that shopping cart that my credit limit at Target would allow. So I don't know how much of worth it that is, but I suppose I could pull that up real quick. I do keep putting things on there here and there, and that's mostly because I'm using it as a shopping list at this point, and also because they also have a completion discount, so as I add things on, I can get 15% off for them, so. Yeah, diapers, I mean, I will always take some diapers. I think there's some diapers listed on there. Wipes we're pretty all set with for now, but, I mean, who knows with the shortages and things like that. So I even have gone through at this point, and like, so some of the things are only available at Bye Bye Baby, so I started a separate registry there. Some of the things are only on Amazon, so I started a separate registry there, so I can get all of the coupons. And today I went up and picked up a bag of like baby clothes from a random stranger's house on the internet. Like, I am pulling all stops here. But yeah, cloth diapers is the one thing that I have not gotten yet, in case of diaper shortages, because I don't know enough about them yet. Just like I don't know enough about high chairs yet, or baby gates, but I won't need those for a while. So anyways, so we'll get into some of these actual stories now. So first, as I was pulling up some of the links today for tonight's stories, there is something new trending on Twitter, and so we'll talk about that. And well, I mean, live streams usually get demonetized, or I don't bother monetizing them to begin with, so we'll do this, and maybe I'll delete it later. I don't know. And just cut out some of the other stuff for individual videos. We'll see. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The Hokey Pokey for children 5 to 11 has been tentatively approved by the FDA. It's actually a little bit strange. So this just happened a few hours ago. According to AP News, FDA paves way for Pfizer COVID Hokey Pokey in young kids. And this is basically what you need to know. The FDA administration on Friday, well, that's kind of redundant. The Food and Drug Administration on Friday paved the way for children ages 5 to 11 to get Pfizer's COVID Hokey Pokey. The FDA cleared kid-sized doses, so I think that's kind of interesting that these kid-sized doses are only a third of the amount given to teens and adults. It's for emergency use only as of right now, but that's likely to change. And up to 28 million more American children could be eligible for Hokey Pokeys as early as next week. One more regulatory hurdle remains, and that is that on Tuesday, advisors for the CDC will make more detailed recommendations on which youngsters should get vaccinated, with a final decision by the agency's director expected shortly afterwards. And the example that they use of why this is good is because other countries are doing it, particularly China, which we should totally be trusting. China is giving their Hokey Pokeys to 3-year-olds, and so we should be listening to China. With the FDA's action, Pfizer plans to begin shipping millions of vials of the pediatric Hokey Pokey in orange caps to avoid mix-up with the purple capped doses for everyone else, and I am willing to bet that there will be some mistakes there. And it doesn't matter if they have little color-coded caps, like, there's gonna be some mistakes made. I think that we can all predict that with some certainty here. They'll be shipping them to doctors' offices, pharmacies, and other Hokey Pokey sites. Once the CDC issues its ruling, eligible kids will get 2 shots 3 weeks apart. Now, here is the interesting part. So it's approved right now for emergency use only, and they said that there's going to be further recommendations of which children will receive the Hokey Pokey or should receive the Hokey Pokey. And there's a couple reasons for that. First, while children are at lower risk of severe illness or death from COVID-19 than older people, 5 to 11-year-olds still have been seriously affected, including over 8,300 hospitalizations, about a third requiring intensive care. The FDA said that there were 146 deaths reported in that age group. So out of all of the kids 5 to 11 who have gotten COVID, out of all of those kids, there were 8,300 hospitalizations, and even out of all of those, we only had 146 deaths. Now, the death of a child is a really terrible, horrible, awful thing. I am not minimizing that in any capacity, but in the grand scheme of things, 146 deaths is pretty small considering the only number they're giving you, and I think it's pretty convenient that they're doing it this way, is for hospitalizations. They're not giving us the total number of kids in that age group who have tested positive for COVID. Now, it also says that with the extra contagious Delta variant circulating, the government has counted more than 2,000 coronavirus-related school closings just since the start of the school year, affecting more than 1 million children. So to me, and this is just my take, maybe I'm wrong, but knowing the way that the government operates, when I see that there are thousands and thousands of children allegedly that have tested positive for COVID, and we've had this many hospitalizations with only 146 deaths, and the next paragraph is about how, but we've had more school closures and more children have been affected by school closures than have actually been affected by the virus itself, like through direct sickness. To me, it's like, this is about the schools. This isn't really about saving children. It's about keeping the schools open. And that's what it's really about. I see C. Reed says, how many less children died of SIDS? I believe SIDS is pretty low at this point. I was actually just reading about it the other night, and I believe it's 1 in every 1,000 infants age 1 year or younger. So I don't know how many infants there are in the United States at any given time that are 1 year or less, but I would imagine it's pretty similar numbers. But I could be wrong. And now here's another fun part. Earlier this week, the FDA's independent scientific advisors voted that the pediatric hokey pokeys promised benefits outweigh any risks, but several panelists says that not all youngsters will need to get the hokey pokey, and they prefer that the shots be targeted to those at higher risk from the virus. But, so they say that the benefits outweigh any risks, but they don't tell us what those risks are. They haven't really told us what those risks were in any of the adult versions, and when people questioned any of those risks, they were shot down, they were called conspiracy theorists, they got their videos flagged by YouTube for asking questions or posting news stories or posting about people who have asked questions. It's a hot button topic that can get you banned from other social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook. Meanwhile, we have European countries that are flat out saying that the hokey pokey shouldn't be given to anyone under the age of 30 because of some of these side effects and risks. But they're saying here, the FDA is like, we promise that the benefits outweigh the risk, but we're also not going to tell you what those risks are or allow you to question those risks. Also of note, that 70% of 5 to 11-year-olds hospitalized for COVID in the US have other serious medical conditions, including asthma and obesity, according to federal tracking. So that's similar to what we see in adults. And now here is how they decided that the hokey pokey is safe for children. They did a singular study of 2,268 school children, some of which got the hokey pokey, and some of them got dummy hokey pokeys. And they said, well, the kids that got the dummy hokey pokey had 16 cases of COVID, while the kids that got the real hokey pokey, only 3 of them got COVID. So out of this study, of nearly 2,300 children, only 19 of them actually caught COVID when being exposed to it. That's a really, really small amount for a virus that they claim is super transmissible and super, super deadly. I don't know if someone wants to run the math on that real quick for the percentage of that, but they're saying, well, it's 91% effective. But again, I mean, even in the kids who didn't get the hokey pokey, only 16 of them caught COVID. And then they later on went and added a few hundred of other case studies for a total of 3,100. And they said that they had similar numbers and that youngsters experienced similar or fewer temporary reactions to the hokey pokey that teens experience, but still, they admit that the study done was not large enough to detect any extremely rare side effects, such as the heart inflammation they say that occasionally occurs after the second full-strength dose, mostly in young men and teen boys. It's unclear if younger children getting a smaller dose will also face that rare risk. They're saying it's a rare risk, but that is exactly what has made other countries suspend the hokey pokey in people aged 30 and younger. And in some countries say that it shouldn't be given to teenagers at all because of the risks that it imposes, especially on young men. So they say the benefits outweigh the risks, but they're not going to tell us those risks. And the one study that they have done on children for this hokey pokey isn't even big enough to detect any of those side effects. So what does that tell you, folks? And I see Bob Messer-Cola. It brings up an interesting point. He says, coming soon to a hospital near you, and it scrolled up, the in vitro hokey pokey, so that newborns will come into the world already hokey pokeyed and probably won't need their first booster for another 6 to 8 months. So, fun fact, they push the hokey pokey on pregnant people because they say, they say to the women, well, the antibodies that you get from it, you will pass on to your child for a certain amount of time. They're not completely sure whether or not it actually crosses through the placenta. They have noted that it crosses through breast milk, but that only really works so long as you're breastfeeding. Any antibodies that you get through breastfeeding have a protective factor that will last for some time after you stop breastfeeding, but not like a lifelong thing. But I think I had mentioned it last week or the week before. There was a thread on Twitter from this doctor who studies health statistics, and he actually mentioned that there are several hospitals who encouraged women to get the hokey pokey, and now, oddly enough, there's a rising number of newborns passing away within the first 48 hours of life, and they don't know why, and it's all in women that got the hokey pokey. So that's kind of scary. Graham Pinkston, thank you for the super chat. He says, the super sticker says game over. I suppose in a couple of different ways. Red Leg Wolf says, Soviet Russia and Nazi Germany, no free speech for anyone. Woke America, hey guys, can I join in? I mean, that's kind of what it feels like. Q says felt cute, might delete later. Yeah, pretty much. That's what I was thinking of too. Gloxer for Kids says, side note, oh god, this is awful. 593 days of 14 days to flatten the curve. It's been a year and a half. A year and a half. We're getting close on 2 years. That's just awful. Thinking Impaired says FDA approval is based on the amount of bribe money given. I mean, that's certainly what it feels like at this point. And Q says China would know more about the virus than anyone. Through that, we talked last week about the gain of function research that the NIH was funding in China and the proof of that came out. D99Ted says, hey LD, do you take crypto that's not Bitcoin or Litecoin? There is a D5 token I want to donate, but I don't want to send it to the wrong place. I don't have, well, I have a wallet for Shiba. I went into the Shiba. I put in $100 into Shiba because that's like what I felt comfortable putting in while trying to do all the baby things. I put 100 into Shiba and have more than tripled up so far, which is pretty sweet. I'm hoping that it eventually hits like a penny or even a nickel. That would be pretty sweet. Bring it to the moon. But as far as like I have Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and those, I think I have an address for like Ethereum. But to my knowledge, I am not a big crypto person, so I could be totally wrong. But the wallet that I use, I have to like sort of like sign up for that specific coin to get a specific address so that you can send that specific coin to that section of the wallet through what is that, Coinomi. But to get Shiba, I just did sign up for Coinbase a couple weeks ago. I don't really know how that works. You guys know that I'm a boomer with technology, so I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to look into it, I guess. Andrew Kang says, sorry, LD, math is racist. Yeah, I mean, we have been told that math is racist. Omega says, how to know you're in a cult. 1, worship the authority. 2, do not associate with others who deny the authority. 3, never question the authority. Yeah, that is what it's looking like these days, isn't it? Alright, so let's see. I saw some people in the chat that were asking about the NRA hack and if that was, if like member lists got out or which things got out. Oh, I missed a couple. That's weird. They popped up on one side and not on the other. Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, I'll grab these and then I'll jump in. Blocks of a Kid says, I know that LD has been talking for about 45 minutes, but in my head, all that I can hear now is the Hokey Pokey song. You put your right foot in, you take your right foot out. I know, I feel kind of silly using that instead, but we have to do code words now. I think I've told you guys I'm in a mom group where they call it the cupcake. And that is awful for a pregnant woman with cravings because every time I see a post about the cupcake, then I want cupcakes. Getting pretty brutal. Graham Pinkston says, which country is more Nazi right now, Germany or USA? That's a really good question that I honestly don't know how to answer for you guys. I really don't. I don't like the way that this looks. I'm gonna put this back here. Let's see. Okay. Sorry. Let's see. Did that change it too much? Okay. I felt like I was like all scrunched down, so. Alright, so I saw some people asking about the NRA hack and whether or not that included membership roles and things like that. So we will get into that now. I have a couple of different articles on this that have like a couple of different details, but there still isn't a whole lot. So here we go. First, we have this from NBC. Cybercriminals claim to have hacked the NRA. A ransomware group that experts say is based in Russia has posted what it claims are 13 NRA files to the dark web. NBC writes, a notorious Russian cybercriminal group has posted what appear to be NRA files to the dark web. The group, known as Grief, posted 13 files to its website Wednesday and claimed to have hacked the NRA. It is threatening to release more of the files if not paid, though it did not publicly state how much. So they're asking for a ransom, but we don't know what that ransom actually is. Cybersecurity experts widely believe that Grief is a rebranded effort by a group of Russian cybercriminals who previously used the name Evil Corp, which is currently under sanctions by the U.S. Treasury Department, and clearly that is just going swimmingly. Also, I'm pretty sure Evil Corp, wasn't that the name of the company in Mr. Robot? I wonder which came first. They said that the NRA didn't respond to comment, but they did put out a tweet, and this is the tweet that the NRA put out about it, that just says, NRA does not discuss matters relating to its physical or electronic security. However, the NRA takes extraordinary measures to protect information regarding its members, donors, and operations, and is vigilant in doing so. And this was put out by the managing director of the NRA's public affairs. And of course, all of the comments are pretty anti-NRA. Things like, and frankly, the NRA only cares about your money. Though it's hard to tell if that's from a leftist or not, because the NRA has been in a lot of financial issues and has been served, I guess I'll say, several lawsuits over the last couple of years that I have covered pretty in depth on the channel, of all the people that are coming after them and why, and all the money that went to places that it shouldn't and people that it shouldn't, and all of the horrible things that Wayne LaPierre has done to the NRA. So that being said, this might not even be a lefty that's saying it. But, you know, comments about how the NRA are actually the ones behind January 6th, and, you know, all the typical anti-NRA, anti-2A stuff that you would expect. NBC also says that most of the files viewed by NBC News relate to NRA grants. They include blank grant proposal forms. Not really sure what good that is for a ransom, but that's one of the things that was posted. A list of recent grant recipients, an email to a recent grant winner earlier this month, as well as a W-9 form. The leak also includes the minutes from a September 24th NRA teleconference meeting. So at this point, that's the only information that we have as to what was actually hacked and what documents they might have. So we have, I don't know, a grant proposal form that's blank. Doesn't seem, I mean, it sucks, but it doesn't seem world-ending to me. Neither does a W-9 form. I mean, I guess it depends what's on it. NRA minutes for a meeting. I mean, hypothetically, a lot of big companies make those things public anyways, and with the NRA and all of the shitstorm that they've been in recently, should probably be making some of that stuff public anyways. So, as far as we know, no membership roles, no names, anything like that. This is all that we have, and this is all that has been posted so far. None of the articles that I read said anything about the group even claiming to have member information or any kind of member identifiers at all. So this is what we have. I don't know, like, I don't know the exact words on any of these documents, but if someone said to me, like, oh, hey, I have this blank form that you use, or so you better pay me or I'll release more stuff, I wouldn't pay them. Not for that. But I'm also not on the NRA payroll, and I'm not a public relations expert or anything like that, so who knows? I mean, at this point, they have been investigated and their stuff gone through with like tooth and comb so much that anything that they have to hide would probably be in the light at this point anyways. Now again, if they had membership roles, that would be something different, but it doesn't appear right now that they have any of that. And that's kind of all the information on this article. CBS has a little bit of extra information, but it's still not much. Again, they say that the NRA didn't return a request for comment, but a person with direct knowledge of the situation, who is not authorized to discuss the matter publicly and spoke on condition of remaining anonymous, said the NRA has had problems with its email system this week, a potential sign of a ransomware attack. So the theory right now is that they sent a phishing link or something like that through the email system. Alan Liska, an intelligence analyst at the cybersecurity firm Recorded Future, said it's highly unusual for a politically active group such as the NRA to be targeted by a ransomware gang, but he said that there is no evidence the attack was politically motivated. He said ransomware gangs usually do not target organizations, but rather just vulnerable technologies. And he says that it's not likely that this was specifically targeted at the NRA, just that the NRA happened to get hit. And he said that it's likely that the email problems are related to the ransomware attack, and he said that email systems are the top targets of ransomware gangs because they often contain sensitive information and hamper an organization's response to an attack, further incentivizing them to pay a ransom. It also can be pretty easy to get in through an email if you have some idiot clicking links that they're not supposed to click. Basically. I mean, that happened at most jobs that I worked at before I went into business for myself. The systems would get viruses. They wouldn't get ransomware attacks, but they would get all kinds of viruses and worms and things like that because, like, people were dumb and clicked on things they shouldn't. So again, they are saying that the group is called Grief. They believe that it's a reincarnation, basically, of Evil Corps. And this has a little bit more detail. It says that the U.S. Treasury Department imposed sanctions on the group in 2019, saying it had stolen more than $100 million from banks and financial institutions in 40 countries. So that does kind of make them sound like a big deal. But again, it sounds like they don't really have that much on the NRA, and that is the only information that we have about this so far. So unfortunately, there really isn't much out there in terms of detail, but that is what we have. And so it sounds, at least right now, that if you are a member of the NRA, your membership status, any personal information or identifying information that the NRA has, it seems right now like that is safe and hasn't been affected, but we don't know. And I'm kind of on the fence as to if the NRA thought that this group had that information, would they tell its members? I don't know, because there's been a lot of fishy stuff happening at the NRA that they've tried to keep quiet, that they haven't told people about, that's only come out through the investigations in New York and some of the lawsuits and things that were, found through discovery. So I don't know. I'm split really as to whether or not they would provide that information if they had it. Andrew Kang says that ransom is never random. Yeah, that's kind of my impression too. If it really is a group of hackers from Russia, like, I doubt that they were like, oh, we're gonna hack the NRA to make a political statement against, like, gun rights. It was probably like, oh, we know that this is a big organization and they're vulnerable right now, let's get them. That's my take, at least. I see Emmanuel Goldstein is asking, I'm guessing this is about the NRA, if they passed any pro-gun laws. I know they passed some anti-gun laws, or helped pass some anti-gun laws. A lot of the big major gun control since, like, the 60s was backed by the NRA. They had a pretty bad take on bump stocks. I don't know. Personally, I'm a member of Gun Owners of America, and I haven't joined them yet, but husband is a member of Palmetto Gun Rights, which is how I have this little sticker here. Though, I mean, South Carolina is really good with their gun rights, so I don't know how necessary it is, but it doesn't hurt. Let's see. I see that there were some other super chats. C. Reed says, baby wants another cupcake, damn it. Right? And I bought some, like, chocolate chip pound cake the other day that had, like, some frosting over it. So good. And that's done and gone. So I've got to find something. I have, like, 3 different packages of 3 different kinds of cookies in the cabinet right now. So that might take the place of the cupcake. Oh, Emmanuel says no, it was about Trump. Well, yeah, he also had a bad take on bump stocks, and also said the take guns first, due process later thing. That was not great. Trump was not great for the Second Amendment. He also wasn't terrible, all things considered. Not the way that, like, Joe Biden is terrible and Obama was terrible, so Warsaw Patriot says NRA, not real Americans. Oh, that's right, Jito, thank you for the reminder. NRA supported red flag laws. That's a big one. That is a very big one. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Robert Graham says the Gun Control Act of 1968 was for the sole purpose of disarming black people. That is true. And I am hoping to get some more, like, evergreen type videos done before baby gets here, so that I can post those in, like, January and February, or, like, get them set up to post and then just, like, schedule them at those times, because I don't know how great I'm gonna be with, like, doing my tags on YouTube and stuff with zero sleep and a crying little lady. But I'm hoping to do some evergreen videos at that point, or for that point. And one of the topics that I've been researching is actually the racist history of gun control. And that is something that I have found in my research, is that, yeah, it was basically like, let's disarm the black people and stop the Black Panthers. Basically. Alright. Squid Monkey says Trump was only 50% bad for the 2A. Yeah, I guess that's a great way to put it. Soak Up the Sun Man says bump stocks are neither here nor there. They are certainly not Trump's hill to die on. That is true. That is true. He certainly didn't go full Massachusetts, which said, life in prison for owning a bump stock or a trigger crank. But let's hope that no one ever else goes full Massachusetts. 2 Timothy 3 also says that the NRA supported background checks. That is also true. So, Patio Furniture says, wasn't Evergreen Hillary's Secret Service name? Was it? I feel like Joe Biden had like a tree related name or something, right? Because that came up in the Hunter Biden story from a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I think that there was, yeah, I think that, I feel like Joe Biden had like a tree or like foliage related name too. Anyways, um, okay, so now we're gonna talk about, and thank you to Robin for sending or alerting me to this earlier today so that this could be a topic. So, this is one I'm gonna give to you guys, and it's in an archive link to get past the Wall Street Journal paywall and find a way around these things 9 times out of 10. So there are a couple different websites that are reporting on this, and Tucker Carlson reported on it last night, I believe, as well. The source that everybody is using is the Wall Street Journal. So we're going to go directly to the Wall Street Journal and see what this is about. And the way that Tucker Carlson and some of these other websites are putting it is that Joe Biden is essentially giving reparations to illegal immigrants, which in a way is kind of funny because that's one of the things that BLM wanted, is they wanted reparations, and they helped get him elected, and now he's not even speaking to them. But he's going to turn around and do these reparations for illegal immigrants. It's pretty funny. So I have some of the basics of this. I don't have all the details yet. I haven't finished reading this article, so we're going to check it out together. It's not terribly long, so we'll see. So this is from the Wall Street Journal. U.S. in talks to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to families separated at the border. The government is considering payments of $450,000 per person. Here's the key: affected by Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy in 2018 for asylum seekers illegally crossing the border. I say that this is key because these lawsuits that the government looks like they're going to be paying out, and these reparations they're going to be giving, are based on families that were separated during the Trump administration, even though the like camps and policies and all of that didn't actually stem from the Trump era, started under Obama, which means they also started under Biden. But to distract from that, I guess, they're saying, oh, it was Trump stuff, and so people that were separated under Trump, we're going to give them money as reparations, even though some of these policies and these like camps were from the Obama administration. I mean, some of those camps and things have been in place since the 80s, but they really ramped up under Obama, and Obama is really the president of like kids in cages. But they're trying to deflect from that and put the blame solely on Trump. I see people are saying, oh, so a family of 4 is in for a payday. Exactly. So, this just came out yesterday from the Wall Street Journal. The Biden administration is in talks to offer immigrant families that were separated during the Trump administration around $450,000 a person in compensation, according to people familiar with the matter, as several agencies work to resolve lawsuits filed on behalf of parents and children who say the government subjected them to lasting psychological trauma. So it sounds like basically what they're trying to do is pay these people off to like settle outside of court. But we'll see. So it's the DOJ, Homeland Security, and Health and Human Services are all considering payments that would amount close to $1 million per family. Though the final numbers could shift, they say, the people familiar with the matter said. Most of the families that crossed the border illegally from Mexico to seek asylum in the U.S. included one parent and one child. Many families would likely get smaller payouts depending on their circumstances, the sources said. So, I mean, if it's one parent and one child, and it's $450,000 per person, then that is almost $1 million per family. I don't know where that money is coming from, but that's going to add up really quickly, especially considering that according to the ACLU, which represents families in one of the lawsuits, the ACLU says that there are about 5,500 children separated at the border over the course of the Trump administration, citing figures provided to it by the government. So, if you figure at minimum $450,000 for 5,500 kids, and we say that each one of them has one parent, so then we're looking at $1 million to 5,500 children and their parents. That's a lot of money. They say so far 940 claims have been made and filed by the families, so the potential payout could be $1 billion or more. That is a lot of money. I mean, it's not on par with Joe Biden's spending plans that he claimed actually equal zero, but that's still a lot of money. They say that the number of families eligible or expected to be eligible under the potential settlement is expected to be smaller than this 5,500 figure, but again, 940 claims have been filed so far by the families. So, I mean, if you figure $1 million each, that gets up there pretty quick. As part of a so-called zero-tolerance enforcement policy, immigration agents separated thousands of children, ranging from infants to teenagers, from their parents at the southern border in 2018 after they had crossed illegally from Mexico to seek asylum in the U.S. Now, a quick note about that is originally they were not separated, which is true, and there were complaints about children being in adult prisons and adult camps and being around some pretty shady adult figures in these immigrant facilities, and of the conditions not being great. And that is, at least allegedly, why the children were separated. Also because they found that there were a lot of folks that were essentially stealing or kidnapping children in order to cross and try to get approved for asylum. And it was essentially human trafficking that was going on. And that is one of the reasons why they started this policy of separating children and adults. And it was not just a Trump policy, but they're turning it into a Trump policy and saying that it was done out of pure evil, and then that's why all of these people need to get $1 million. In some cases, families were forcibly broken up with no provisions to track and later reunite them, government investigations found. The lawsuits allege some of the children suffered from a range of ailments, including heat exhaustion and malnutrition, and were kept in freezing cold rooms and provided little medical attention. Now, if that is true, that part is messed up. I mean, it's pretty messed up to treat people that way. But at the same time, government does some shady shit to pretty much everyone. The government has fucked over every American citizen in at least one way or another, and we don't get reparations for it. We just get told, well, that's the price you pay to live in a civilized society. Just throwing that out there. Many of the lawsuits describe lasting mental health problems for the children from the trauma of the months without their parents in harsh conditions, including anxiety, a fear of strangers, and nightmares. The lawsuits seek a range of payouts, with the average demand being roughly $3.4 million per family, some of the people said. That is a huge amount. That is more than some Americans make in 5 years, a decade. More than that? More than that, actually, probably. My math is wrong. Most people won't even make close to that in a decade. But that's what's going to be given. They're approximating per family. And I mean, whatever your thoughts on the border, right? Whether it should be open, should it be closed, whether or not you think that immigration should be legal or illegal, I mean, the fact of the matter is that at that point in time, it was illegal. I mean, I guess it still technically is, but Biden is doing like whatever. It was technically illegal to just cross the border all willy-nilly into the country, and people did that, and then were faced with the consequences of the law and are now suing for it and getting big paydays. Now, on the other hand, there's a difference too between like crossing illegally and actually going to points where you can seek asylum for as like an economic refugee, political refugee, like whatever. There's a difference between the two routes, right? And there were some people that chose to not go to like dedicated asylum areas and just cross, and then they got caught, and now they're filing lawsuits. I mean, and it sounds like the treatment of some of these children was really, really terrible. Sounds like the children were basically treated like they were in prison, which is what happens in America when people do stuff that they're not supposed to. Not making a comment on whether that's right or wrong, just making a comment as to that's the way that it is written in the law books. Q says immigration is fine, sneaking in is not. I tend to agree. Like, I believe that people should be able to, travel freely throughout the world and, have access and stuff like that. But that would be, it's a different story. That's like in an ideal world. It's different for me when the US is basically a giant welfare state, and then people come here solely for the benefits that welfare state provides, which is really bloating the government spending even more and making the budget even worse. And then the Democrats use that to buy votes, and it becomes a really toxic and dysfunctional system. If there was no welfare state involved, and people from Mexico or Honduras or whatever were just like, hey, yeah, I think I'd like to move to America. Good for you. Do it. But then when we have this huge and bloated welfare state, and the Democrats are advertising it as such in order to basically bus in more voters, that is a huge, huge problem. Talisman says take away all welfare, then immigration would not be a problem. Basically, to sum it up, that's kind of how I feel about it as well. So, that's that. That's the aside. The Wall Street Journal goes on. In recent months, lawyers for the families and the government have told courts overseeing the cases that they are engaged in settlement negotiations and hoped to reach a deal by the end of November. So it is exactly as I suspected. They are trying to make settlements and actually not bring this to court. And what's interesting is there are some articles that I read that said that these lawsuits don't actually really have any merit because of the way that the laws are written and the policies being what they are. And so really, Biden wanting to settle these outside of court and provide these reparations is basically him trying to buy more votes and buy more support and, make himself look like this great progressive social justice president as his approval numbers are hitting record lows week after week after week. That is the theory, that is the speculation. I mean, it sounds pretty sound to me that is the logic there, especially when there are legal experts saying that there really isn't much of a case to any of these lawsuits. I mean, and if that is the case, why else would the Biden administration be looking to settle them out of court for this much money? It is purely for the optics and the PR. According to the ACLU, President Biden has agreed that the family separation policy is a historic moral stain on our nation that must be fully remedied. And that is according to the deputy director of the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project and a lead negotiator on one of the lawsuits. That remedy must include not only meaningful monetary compensation, but a pathway to remain in the country. The other thing is, if this goes through and these immigrants really are given reparations, that opens up the door, and I have to wonder then, are other minority communities then going to demand that they get reparations too and use this as an example to back up their claims? Or are they going to turn on Biden and be like, well, you promised us reparations and, said you were going to do all these things for us and you ignored us, but then you're giving it to these people. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But I don't know if it's billions of dollars in tax money. Interesting. In his first weeks in office, Mr. Biden pledged to reunite the separated families, describing those actions undertaken by the Trump administration as a moral and national shame. A DHS spokeswoman referred questions to the Justice Department, where a spokeswoman declined to comment. So they're basically playing telephone and sending reporters to different places and giving them the runaround. The Department of Health and Human Services also would not provide a comment. The discussions have been at times contentious. They have taken place over the last few months among a group of dozens of private lawyers representing the families and government lawyers. Some government lawyers have viewed the payouts as excessive for people who had violated the law by crossing the border, the people said. Exactly. One government lawyer threatened to remove his name from the case out of disagreement with the potential settlement offer. That is a pretty big deal. In another instance, a DHS attorney involved in the settlement talks complained on a conference call that the payouts could amount to more than some families of 9/11 victims. That is also a really valid point. Other people said senior departmental officials were in alignment on the amount but disputed the 9/11 comparison, given that the U.S. government hadn't been responsible for September 11th. That's debatable. Building 7, jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. Just saying. Maybe not responsible. Responsible might be a strong word, but we'll just leave that there and let that percolate a little bit. The 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund averaged awards to the dead of around $2 million, tax-free, at the time an unprecedented payout, the administrator of the fund has said. Damage class actions in this kind of case are pretty rare. It's hard to think of a recent comparison, said Margot Schlanger, who ran the Civil Rights Office during the Obama administration at the DHS and now teaches at the University of Michigan Law School. Ms. Schlanger said that class action compensation claims are more common in cases involving defective medical devices or other consumer products. So here we have it, that even the government lawyers think that this is ridiculous and think that these lawsuits don't really have any merit, but it sounds like it's the higher-ups of Biden and his upper echelon of the administration that are pushing this through, basically. They say that it's a complicated and complex piece of litigation to try to resolve hundreds of different lawsuits at the same time, and sometimes even more complex to try the cases, according to this woman, adding that it made sense to try to resolve them together. So they're saying that they're trying to just do the reparations and settle out of court because it's easier. I don't know. I don't know if it's more expensive to settle them or to use the taxpayer funds to actually take them to court, quite frankly. But the optics of this are just absolutely ridiculous. And then more about the Trump administration and his zero tolerance policy and how it's all his fault. The overall goal, the Trump administration said at the time, was to slow the number of people crossing the border illegally, but several of those officials have since apologized for the consequences of that policy. Yeah, the consequences were shitty. They were also very widely advertised. So, I mean, I'm not the kind of person that's typically like, oh, well, if you don't want to feel the wrath of the law, don't break the law, but like, if the whole purpose of the policy was to discourage people from coming, and it was publicized as such, and the world knew about it, as we know that they knew because it was all over the world news in all these different countries, and then you still came anyways, and then when it happened, you're like, fuck you, I'm gonna sue you and get millions of dollars? It's a little messed up. Control of the Purpose says, will the trafficked children get anything? Probably not, because there's no one probably filing lawsuits on their behalf. Right? If they're like trafficked in who knows where at this point. Immigration law gives children greater legal protections than adults, so while the adults' asylum cases could be dismissed quickly, allowing them to be deported, children mostly remained in the U.S. in child welfare centers or living with relatives, so basically like the U.S. foster system, which we know is shitty as well. The Trump administration also hadn't built a system to track with children to which children... The Trump administration also hadn't built a system to track which children belonged to which parents before beginning to separate them. That is certainly an oversight there, to be sure. A January report from the DOJ Inspector General faulted senior Trump Justice Department officials for knowing the policy change would result in families being separated but pressing ahead without preparing for it. He ended the policy through executive order on June 20th, 2018, following bipartisan blowback and global condemnation. Many of the families have filed tort claims, a type of civil claim seeking damages for loss or harm, asking for compensation to cover mental health treatment to address the emotional and psychological toll the practice took. Some of the cases were resolved under the Trump administration. In a 2019 settlement in New Jersey, for example, an adult and a minor received a total of $125,000, which is a lot less than the $1 million they're proposing now. Most such cases remained pending at the start of the Biden administration, and when he became president, he formed a task force to reunite the families that remained separated. And the settlement talks are ongoing in a separate lawsuit known as Ms. L v. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, in which the ACLU has asked the government to provide families with mental health and other services, along with a permanent legal status. I mean, getting mental health treatment, I don't think, is unreasonable, though I don't think that the government should be handing out anything, because I don't think the government has a business being in anyone's lives for anything, quite frankly. But I mean, being like, oh yes, we'd like mental health treatment is far more reasonable to me than this nonsense that is going on. Apart from talks over damages, the administration has already begun a process of locating deported parents and reuniting them with their children in the U.S. The administration has reunited a whole 52 families and is in the process of reuniting about 200 more. The families are being given a 3-year grant of parole, a form of temporary humanitarian protection that allows them to live and work legally in the U.S., but doesn't offer them a path to permanent legal status. Now, I am wondering where in these groups of people, remember how a few months ago there were these buses of children that just showed up in Tennessee under the dead of night and were whisked away on other buses and airplanes and things like that? You guys remember that? Where do they fall in this? Why were there all those children that were just being carted off to other parts of the country and were hanging out in Tennessee in the middle of the night with the government? What's their deal? Are they getting reparations? Was that by choice? Like, you have to wonder where all of this fits in altogether. So that is every dirty detail that we have about these reparations that look like they're going to be given to immigrants. Squid Monkey says a child doesn't have the same level of decision as the parents. I mean, that's true. You could also argue, that for something as something like being whisked across the border, I mean, does the kid have full consent? Because I don't know, I'm sure that they didn't understand the consequences. That was the parents that had to figure that out and decide if it was worth it, Ryan Cook says that those kids are still here and in Chattanooga. So that's a possibility. I see that there were some super chats and things that came in. Let's see. Omega says, still waiting for Trump's universal reciprocity. Yeah, that is something that unfortunately never happened. Ricky Hendricks says the woke ERA is reparations for the Red Scare of the 1950s. A separate note, go Brave. Oh, the woke era. I'm like, ERA, the woke era. That makes sense. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to Google what that is. Mom brain. Chris Britt says, hey, if you could please pray for my family today. My father, Royce Britt, has passed away. Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's really terrible. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sure all the people in the chat will be sending you all of the positive juju and positive thoughts to you and your family. Always a terrible thing to lose someone close to you. Glocks are for kids. I said I had worse treatment in the SERE school. I should sue. I mean, why not? You might get something out of it, right? Omega also says, I just sent you a link on Facebook from HRW about immigrant abuses. It completely debunks the Snopes crap about it not starting with Clinton in 1996/1997. Ooh, thank you. All right, I will check that out. I mean, I know that it's the crap going on at the border, and all of the crazy things that were happening there is something that's been ongoing for a long time. Like, it didn't start under Trump. Some of it started under Obama, but it goes back even further than that. I believe to the 80s. So, and I mean, Clintons, it looks like, did a big part of that, but the Clintons, man, they did all kinds of terrible things. But I can't talk about that or I'll end up suicided somewhere, so... Rod L. Miller says the problem is these cases sets precedents and can be used in future cases against the U.S. Feds should look at applying parents' Atreyu doctrine. I'm probably saying that wrong, but you're right. It does set precedents, and it sets a bad precedence, I think. I mean, I'm sure there are some ways that it could be used for good, but pretty sure that overwhelmingly that will not be the case. Nathan D says same tactics Dems used to unconstitutionally change voting laws in 2020, have people sue, then government lawyers settle because they don't like the law. Yep. Pretty much. That is exactly what that is. David Neal says that they already used the interned Japanese as justification. I mean, that was a pretty messed up policy, too. Carolyn Peterson says, my father had health complications during NOM, nothing given to our family from his death, FJB. Yeah, I mean, God, that's another good point. I mean, how many veterans do we have that are facing long-term effects from things that they experienced while overseas in wars, or experiments that were done on them, or, the fact that, like, conveniently, there are so many people that went to Camp Lejeune that got diabetes later in life. Like, that's a weird connection that I've heard about and read about, and I mean, every one of my families that went there ended up with diabetes later in life. A little weird. Things like that. People that were exposed to, like, Agent Orange, and basically they tell these people, like, oh yeah, go fight for your country and you'll get free college and you'll be taken care of for the rest of your life and you'll be given all of these things, and then they don't give them shit. I mean, you can barely get an appointment with the VA in most places, and yet we have these lawsuits and they're going to settle out of court for like $1 million per family or more. Pretty bullshit. Pretty bullshit, if you ask me. And random comparisons of AOC to horses in the chat. Larry Hutton calling me a potty mouth. Well, that's why I changed the name of the Friday stream to Uncensored, because it just seemed to fit more at this point. Glockser for Kids says, I lost track of who had a death in the family. I'm sorry to hear about it. All the best to you and yours. And that would be Chris Britt. So everyone, please keep him and his family in your thoughts. Robert Graham, you got Lyme disease at Camp Lejeune? Damn, that sucks. That really sucks. Tennessee Beowulf says Agent Orange, burn pits, etc. Yeah. Anti-social justice warrior says Orange Man Bad was the only way to attempt to improve the VA. Captain Max says that the mess hall chow at Lejeune was notorious for many side effects. Yeah. we'll say that. John Doer says, I'm a vet, came back from Iraq with all kinds of issues the VA refuses to cover. Lumps under skin that pop up a lot, issues with eyesight, breathing issues, migraines, etc. Exactly. I mean, and Glockster for Kids also says Gulf War syndrome. I mean, these are people that literally put their life on the line and are experiencing all these things and come back and, for the large part, don't really get much. Harley Hillbilly says, what about Dr. Death practicing on beagle puppies? That is something that I find really upsetting. I mean, I was already upset with everything going on with Fauci, and then to read, like, the horrific details of those experiments of, like, yeah, let's lock these puppies' heads in cages and take out their vocal cords so they can't cry, and then let bugs eat them alive. I don't know, man. That is some pure evil right there. Ugh. I can't. Totally awful. Totally awful. Anyways. So, it is 8:40 now. So I suppose that we will wrap it there. I'm pretty sure that I got all of the super chats and things in, and thank you for the folks that also sent that via PayPal instead, because PayPal does not take the 30%. They take like 3% or like 30 cents or something out of the tip jar, the PayPal tip jar, while YouTube takes 30%. But unfortunately, that's just what happens. Oh, wait a minute. Ron J says, what about the AIDS experiment children? What is that? I have not heard about that. One of the other videos I want to work on to release later is government experiments on children that were real, well, not just children, on people in general that were like really fucked up. So I have of course there's MK Ultra, there's the ones where they put radioactive particles in disabled children's breakfast cereals to see what would happen. Of course, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, things like that. There was a Willowbrook, I forget what the Willowbrook one was, but I did not know that there was an AIDS experiment on children. I'm gonna have to look that up and add that to that video. And let's see, someone mentions a SARS experimental vaccine on soldiers. This is great, man. I mean, it's not great that it happened, but because I've been looking for other things to research for this video. So if anyone has any other examples of government experiments that were conducted on people, either against their knowledge, without their knowledge, or without the true information of what they were being given and what it was for, then send that to me. The best way to send it would be via email, liberty@thelibertydoll.com. That should be listed on my YouTube, both in the description, and if you go to like the about page under contact, it'll say like business inquiries or whatever. My email is there. Or you can send it via Twitter. Don't do it via the Facebook page because Facebook is really bad about alerting me to those things, and 9 times out of 10 they'll be like, oh, you have a message, and then they won't let me view it, and they won't actually show it to me for like a week. So email is best. Twitter is like second best. But email is definitely best for that. If you guys know of any other government experiments, or I'm also looking at doing one about like conspiracy theories that ended up being true, like how like in the 80s the CIA was like watching people through cable boxes and stuff like that. Anything crazy like that that isn't like a news story but will last for a long time so that I can write about it now and post it in January or February would be really great. So, so John Morgan says that there was the contaminated blood products that were given out that gave people HIV, as happened to children with hemophilia. Ugh. Oh my god. Ugh, okay. Oh, Unit 731 someone is mentioning. I've heard of that, but I haven't looked it up yet. But anyways, so we're gonna wrap it here. I see there's some people asking about D&D. D&D, the last week was my last one. I just too tired at night to sit through a game for 2 or 3 or 4 hours at this point. So yeah, no more of that. So it's just you guys, and then going and making myself some supper, and then going to bed. Graham Pinkston says, don't forget to hit the like button right now. Yes, please. And again, reminder that if you were thinking about a USCCA membership, considering one, wanting to get one, whatever, please do it before October 30th, because at that point, the affiliate program is going offline, at least temporarily, and my links will no longer work. By all means, still get a USCCA membership, but it won't help the channel in any way after the 31st. So if you are going to do that, then go do that within the next day or two. Baby bump time, people are asking. All right. Oh, it's harder to get up lately. Let's see. Get it on screen. There we go. It doesn't look as big in this sweater, actually, but it's pretty rotund here. I got maternity photos done this week, and once I get them back, maybe I'll post a couple. But thanks, everyone, for coming and hanging out. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thanks for all these super chats, the tips that came in, and the patrons really for like stepping up with the baby registry. That has been an amazing help, and I'm going to have to come up with some way to thank you guys, but I mean, you've really eased a lot of the anxiety and panic that I was feeling about that when my family basically gave me the finger and refused to participate. So thank you. Thank you to the mods that were here in the chat. Thanks for the likes, the subscribes, because I see that we have a few new subscribers that have come in. Check out the new video. I think that that's all the thank yous. I think that that's it. If I missed anything, I'm sorry. But as always, thanks for tuning in. And I'm going to try to get another video out this week, because I have a couple videos that are kind of time sensitive on the docket. So they're in the editing process. I'm going to try to get those out as soon as possible. So keep an eye out for those. And I will see you in the next video and the next stream. So good night, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night and your weekend. Bye.